that at every premiere and everything I do, people will wait in line to see.
I get stopped for photos every time I'm online for the Snow White ride, and it is I have to pretend like, oh God, well, crazy that we're in front of this.
Wait, how often are you in line for the Snow White ride?
Yeah. Weird. It's Hollywood, baby.
Ever seen a movie flop so hard the lead actress had to sit in a ghost town of a theater just to deal with it? That's exactly what went down with Rachel Zegler. She didn't just star in Disney's Snow White. She became the face of one of the biggest Hollywood disasters in years. This wasn't your regular box office flop. It was a total meltdown. Reviews were brutal, second weekend numbers fell off a cliff, and Rachel? She didn't just stir the pot, she flipped the whole table. From messy interviews to behind-the-scenes drama with her co-stars, Rachel didn't just cause tension, she sparked a Hollywood wildfire. And then came that moment. After months of headlines and non-stop controversy, Rachel pulled up to a screening of her own movie, only to be met with rows of empty seats.
That at every premiere and everything I do, people will wait in line to see.
That's when you know the flop is real. The theater was so quiet, it felt like even the popcorn gave up. She had to bring her crew just to feel less awkward, but the whole thing looked more like a sad birthday party than a Disney premiere. Some fans tried to play it off, claiming they rented out the theater. But come on! Everyone's been dropping videos of empty showings left and right. Even when I finally caved and went to see it, the place was dead. Rachel even posted clips of her buying tickets herself, which just made things worse. Instead of a magical Disney moment, Instagram turned it into a full-on meme fest. What should have been a career win turned into viral proof of a Hollywood crash landing. This had full-on tank my career in 4K energy. You know when someone tries to play off the backlash like they're in on the joke to save face? Yeah. Rachel tried that move, but it flopped just like the movie. Instead of easing the heat, it made the whole thing even more ridiculous. Let's break down the numbers, because wow, they hurt. Disney reportedly dropped a jaw-dropping $370 million trying to remake Snow White into some kind of preachy, modern tale. Between production and marketing, they were pushing $400 million. All that cash to flip a beloved classic into a box office ghost story. So what did they get in return? A $43 million opening weekend! Yikes, that's not even a dent. And people weren't just skipping it, they were straight up walking out mid-movie. Even Dumbo outperformed this one. And that elephant flew out of theaters years ago. By its second weekend, Snow White got hit with a brutal 66% drop in ticket sales, only pulling in $14.2 million. And to make it even worse, it got pushed out of first place by a hardworking man, a regular action flick with way fewer theaters and none of Disney's muscle behind it. Let that sink in. A simple action movie with less hype and half the promo crushed Disney's most iconic fairy tale. After just 1 week on the scene, it ran circles around a film Disney had been hyping for years. This had full-on tank my career in 4K energy. You know when someone tries to play off the backlash like they're in on the joke to save face? Yeah. Rachel tried that move, but it flopped just like the movie. Instead of easing the heat, it made the whole thing even more ridiculous. By March 30th, 2025, the total gross for Snow White in the US and Canada hit around $66.9 million. Toss in the international numbers, and worldwide it scraped together about $142.8 million. Sounds decent, right? Nope. When you've spent almost $400 million, that's a disaster dressed as a fairy tale. It's official! Snow White didn't just flop, it crashed and burned. Not only is it miles away from breaking even, but insiders say Disney's looking at a loss of over $100 million. And as if that wasn't enough, the film's IMDb rating tanked all the way down to 1.5 out of 10 at one point. That's not just bad, that's, should we pretend this never happened? Levels of bad. And don't forget, This is the same studio that turned the Lion King remake into a billion-dollar machine. Yet somehow, with Snow White, entire theaters sat empty. People were even posting seat maps that were so blue, they looked like a deep-sea dive. Which is kind of wild considering Rachel was once out here saying people would be lining up to see her movies.
At every premiere and everything I do, people will wait in line to see.
And wow, that didn't age well at all. Yeah, folks lined up all right. Lined up to buy tickets for literally anything except Snow White. So when that old clip of Rachel resurfaced, bragging about fans lining up to see her movie, it felt like the universe straight up roasted her in 4K. The real issue? Rachel Zegler didn't just act in the movie, she talked it into the ground. She took aim at the 1937 original, calling it outdated, dragging the prince for being a creep, and saying the whole story needed a serious fix. That alone rubbed Disney loyalists the wrong way, especially the ones who grew up loving the classic fairy tale. But she didn't stop there. She turned around and told entire political groups not to watch the movie. Like, girl, you're the face of a family film, not running a campaign. She basically told half the country, this movie ain't for you. And honestly, they listened. Look, everyone's entitled to an opinion. But mixing politics into a Disney fairy tale? That's risky business. This was supposed to be lighthearted magic, not a battleground. And that move? It turned fans off quick. And by now, everyone's heard about the drama behind the scenes. The tension between Rachel and her co-stars was so bad, Disney had to ramp up security after hate messages and threats started pouring in over Rachel's comments. Then, she threw even more shade by calling Gal Gadot a pageant queen and completely left her out of a sentimental Instagram thank you to the cast. Coincidence? Or straight up cold shade? You decide. But honestly, after everything that went down, would it really be shocking if Gal had a little smirk watching this all play out? By this point, the backlash Rachel Zegler was facing had Disney's PR team working overtime, putting out fires like it was their full-time gig. Word on the street is they even brought in a social media expert to manage her posts. But let's be real. Trying to control Rachel online was like trying to babysit a tornado. She'd already gone viral for calling out the original Snow White, throwing shade at fans, and dragging the entire project into controversy after controversy. The chaos got so wild, one of the film's producers had to personally fly out to sit Rachel down and talk about her behavior. And apparently, even Spielberg raised an eyebrow at how messy things had gotten. That's when you know it's out of pocket. Things were so bad, Rachel had to post an apology. And it was so off-brand, people joked it might as well have been written by Disney's legal team, with Mickey Mouse's glove print stamped on the bottom. But the fans weren't having it. The trust was broken, and the damage? Done. And yeah, actions come with consequences. Hollywood started going silent on her. Rachel was allegedly lined up to voice a role in Toy Story 5. Cut. Supposed to join the next Pirates of the Caribbean reboot? Gone. Rumored horror trilogy with Blumhouse? Also vanished. Turns out, no one wants to hire someone who brings more drama than ticket sales. And just when it felt like things couldn't get worse, the internet dug deeper. Old clips, red carpet moments, behind-the-scenes interviews. Suddenly, everything Rachel ever said was being dissected like a true crime case. One fan even put together a whole compilation titled, Why Rachel Zegler Never Liked Snow White, and it blew up overnight. People weren't just mad anymore, they felt played. Like, how you gonna star in a movie you clearly didn't even like, then act shocked when folks don't show up for it? Fans who grew up on that fairy tale felt disrespected, like their childhood fave got dragged through the mud for no reason. Then came the merch mess. Disney had rolled out dolls, t-shirts, posters, the whole package. But shelves stayed stocked like nobody even knew the movie dropped. Retailers started quietly pulling products, and word spread fast that Snow White merch was the new clearance section legend. That's not just a flop. That's a full-on retail crisis. And through it all, Rachel stayed posting. from red carpet throwbacks to behind-the-scenes pics like nothing ever happened, but fans weren't feeling it. They were in the comments, asking if she even understood why people were upset. At this point, it wasn't just about the movie. It was about the attitude, the chaos, and the feeling that Rachel took a crown meant for a queen and turned it into a punchline. Then came the award season. And let's just say, Rachel's name was nowhere to be found. No nominations, no invites, not even a pity category nod. The same girl who once said she dreamed of holding an Oscar? Yeah, she was watching the show from her couch, just like the rest of us. What made it even wilder? Snow White didn't get a single major nod either. Not for costumes, not for visual effects, not even a sympathy mention for the soundtrack. It was like the industry just pretended the movie never happened. For a Disney flick, that's almost unheard of. Meanwhile, other stars were out there winning for roles that barely had half the budget Snow White burned through. Rachel had all the spotlight, all the buzz, and somehow ended up with nothing to show for it. People started calling it the biggest fall-off of the year, and honestly, they weren't wrong. And guess what? As the award shows came and went, Rachel stayed silent. No press runs, no statements, no surprise appearances, just a couple of vague Instagram stories and some artsy selfies. Almost like she was trying to shift focus, act like none of it happened. But the internet doesn't forget. People were still clowning the empty theaters, reposting those seat map blues, and dragging the whole saga like it was their full-time job. At this point, even Hollywood insiders were whispering that Rachel had become too risky to cast. Not because of talent, but because every role now came with a side of chaos. And just when the dust almost started to settle, Rachel made a comeback move that had people shaking their heads. Out of nowhere, she popped up on a podcast, acting like nothing ever happened. Smiling, laughing, dodging any real accountability, and calling the Backlash a learning experience. But to fans, it sounded more like she was brushing the whole thing off. The host tried to keep it light, but every time Snow White got mentioned, Rachel danced around the topic like it was hot lava. No real apology, no owning the damage. It was all surface-level talk about growth and moving forward. But the internet wasn't buying it one bit. Clips from the interview went viral instantly, but not in the way she probably hoped. Comments were flooded with people saying she still didn't get it. Some even joked she was giving Oscar-worthy denial with the way she dodged every tough question. It was like watching PR spin in real time. To make it worse, she tried teasing a mystery project, but instead of excitement, the reactions were brutal. People were straight up begging studios not to cast her again. One comment said, "If drama was currency, she'd be a billionaire by now." The damage wasn't just about one film anymore. It had turned into a reputation problem. People didn't see a misunderstood star. They saw someone who got the shot of a lifetime and fumbled it harder than anyone thought possible. And now, every move she makes feels like it's under a microscope. And the crowd's just waiting for the next slip-up. As if things weren't messy enough, then came the fan events. Or should we say, the fan flops. Rachel showed up to a few promo stops post-release, probably hoping to smooth things over and charm the crowd. But what she got was crickets, empty lines, short meet and greets, and more staff than actual fans showing up. At one event, she posed for photos with barely a handful of people. The pics hit Twitter fast, and the comments were savage. "Is this a Disney event or a pop-up garage sale?" one user joked. Another said, "You'd get a bigger crowd offering free pizza." Brutal! People couldn't believe how far the hype had dropped. This was supposed to be the face of Disney's next big era, and instead, it was giving forgotten side character vibes. The shift from red carpet star to ghost town guest appearances was wild to watch. Meanwhile, Disney stayed real quiet. No backup statements, no defense, no spin. It was like even they were stepping back, letting the whole thing fade into silence. Insiders started whispering that Rachel's name had been quietly pulled from multiple upcoming brand campaigns. She was supposed to lead the next wave of Disney icons. But now, it was clear they were distancing themselves. Fast. And for someone who once said she dreamed of inspiring the next generation, that dream seemed to be slipping further away with every low turnout and awkward selfie. What was once a fairy tale rise had turned into a public fade-out. And the spotlight? It was dimming fast. By now, the Snow White saga wasn't just a flop. It was a full-blown cautionary tale in Hollywood. Behind the scenes, casting directors started treating Rachel's name like it was radioactive. Not because she lacked talent. Everyone knows the girl can sing and act, but because the baggage, too heavy to carry. Studios were watching the social media storms, the PR disasters, the fan backlash, and thinking twice. She became the face of a what not to do checklist. Don't bash the original, don't diss your audience, and definitely don't turn a fairy tale into a controversy magnet. And while Rachel stayed low-key online, fans noticed the silence. No new roles, no surprise announcements, nothing big lined up. Just throwback photos, vague captions, and the occasional promo for side projects. It was clear Hollywood had hit pause on her. Even brand deals slowed down. Fashion labels and campaigns that once hyped her up quietly stopped tagging her, stopped reposting, just stepped back. She went from rising star to PR risk in record time. People started asking, is Rachel Zegler the first Disney princess to get unofficially blacklisted? A harsh question, but one that felt real when the phones stopped ringing. This wasn't about hate. It was about Hollywood protecting its image, and if there's one thing the industry loves more than a comeback story, it's staying out of trouble. Now, all eyes are on her next move. Can she bounce back? Or did the Snow White meltdown become the role that rewrote her whole career? The fairy tale's over, for now. But the world's still watching. After the flop, Rachel took to social media talking about how Snow White was life-changing and emotional for her. But with empty theater videos flooding the internet, silence around Gal Gadot, and non-stop damage control behind the scenes, the meltdown was already complete. The film didn't just underperform, it became the punchline for Disney's whole identity crisis. And Rachel Zegler, once seen as Hollywood's next big thing, she's now the blueprint for how fast the industry can flip on you when you mix ego, politics, and a $370 million fairy tale gone sideways. She didn't just have a rocky press tour, she spiraled. From clashing with fans, creating tension with co-stars, and ending up watching her own film in a nearly empty room. It's gone beyond bad PR. Right now, Rachel is the face of a movie buried under viral memes, audience backlash, and what looks like serious studio regret. So here's the real question. Is this the final chapter for Rachel Zegler? Or does she still have a shot at redemption after this royal wreck? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Do you think she can bounce back? Or is the Hollywood fairy tale officially over? And don't forget, like, share, and subscribe for more breakdowns just like this. 'Cause in Tinseltown, not every princess gets a happy ending. Especially not Rachel Z.